So you're talking about this paragraph. Sustain me, O Lord, during this interim period when I must let go of the promise of outer pleasure and hold on to your promise of inner pleasure. Even when I may not yet be experiencing any pleasure, but only the austerity of being in no man's land. Yes. I think it's a very relatable experience for all of us, isn't it? So it's like, say, we consider there is a lower taste of sensual pleasures that we want to give up. And there is the higher taste of bhakti we want to develop. So say we are here, and in one sense we have to take a leap all the way here. But sometimes what happens, we go here and we come back. Or sometimes we go here and then we go further down. So it feels too high a leap for us. So in those cases, I think some things help. One of them is, I'll talk about two things. One of them is that we can talk about something like a higher, so generally we talk about a lower material taste and a higher spiritual taste. But we can have a higher material taste that is used spiritually. What do I mean by this? That, say, maybe before we came to bhakti, we liked music. Now, music can be for sense gratificatory purposes, but there can also be music which is soothing and calming and uplifting, even if it is not devotional. So now, if we like music, then naturally we feel peaceful, we feel absorbed when we hear music. So that is a relatively higher material taste. Instead of somebody just binging on Netflix or eating food or getting into sense gratification or drink alcoholism, if they are hearing music and feeling peaceful, relatively speaking, it's sattvic. Of course, it depends on what you are hearing, what they are hearing. But you could say it's a material taste. But it is relatively higher. Somebody likes drawing. Somebody likes art. They can spend hours on art. Now, they may not be it may not be anything about Krishna, but that's okay. At least they are not getting into gross sense gratification. So we all have our particular material nature. And based on those material nature, we have certain natural tastes and interests. So if those could be connected with Krishna, then that is not necessarily spiritual immediately, but it is spiritualizable, or it gives us stability till we get to the spiritual. So like I was saying that in many ways, kirtan is easier to absorb ourselves than japa. One reason is that in japa there is nothing except me and Krishna. In kirtan there is music, there are instruments. So how much is the absorption I am getting, the joy I am getting, how much is it devotional joy and how much is it musical joy? Now, does it matter? Well, as long as it is in the ambit of Krishna consciousness, it doesn't matter so much. If for the sake of musical joy, I give up hearing spiritual music and start hearing mundane music, that's a different thing. So, if it's in the ambit of Krishna consciousness, it's good. Gradually, the spiritual will become more and more. Initially, we just like the music more and more. So, when I say higher material spiritual taste, it could be that. So, I may have material taste for many things. And then there are Krishna conscious activities. Now, Krishna conscious activities. Now, there are many Krishna conscious activities for which I do not have taste. And there are many material activities which are giving me material taste that are outside of Krishna consciousness. So we could call it this is as the lower taste. And this is the circle of Krishna consciousness which does not interface with our taste, that is the material taste. But I'm talking about the intermediate between the two, lower, the higher material taste. So we could say this may be sattvic, relatively speaking, in mode of goodness. So each one of us needs to find that. When we talk about varnashram, it was not just about dividing people into 4 groups. It was basically engaging people according to their nature. So that means the natural interests are there, we will become absorbed. I was staying at one devotee's home and I came back, and that the hostess, the Mataji, she had cooked like 500 cookies. And I said, is there some festival? He says, then her husband had driven me to the program. He says, no, cooking is her stress relief. I said, it's a wonderful stress relief, You're cooking and you're actually doing some service. Now, for some other people, cooking may not be stress relief, cooking may just be stress. I said, okay, I have to cook so many things. So we all have certain interests, we have certain abilities. So we need to find out which of those can be linked with Krishna, which can be connected with Krishna. So for me, for example, as an author, for me, I love words. I can spend hours playing with words. When I'm driving for a program, my eyes always wander to the billboards. And sometimes I have a giant billboard and my eyes will first go to the words, and if I find the words interesting, then I'll look at the image. So sometimes the image doesn't interest me at all. I have read entire books without even noticing the cover page of the book. Or the cover image in the book actually. So for me, words are very naturally interesting for me. And then, so the more I remember words, I think, how can I use this word in Krishna's service? How do I use that word in Krishna's service? So sometimes I feel I am more word conscious than Krishna conscious. But I think it's okay, because now it's not that for finding good words, I am going to read books which are filled with sensuality. Or I'm going to read completely anti-devotional matter. So if I do that, then I'm going off track. But so it's important for us to find this level. A higher material taste which is spiritual, which is usable spiritually. And sometimes it may not be usable spiritually, that's also okay. One devotee told me that he was from a he was from a yoga background, and he had gone to the Himalayas and he spent a lot of time. He loved nature, and then Himalayas were like a spiritual place for him also. That's where he discovered his spirituality. And first he discovered impersonal spirituality. And then he was introduced to devotees. He came to a temple, he stayed in the temple, and there was some severe conflict with some devotees he had. And then he left. And I was in touch with him. So he said that I'm again in the Himalayas. I think the Mayavadi inside me has come back now. Mayavadi is the impersonalist. He said that actually I am feeling more peaceful here in the Himalayas than I was feeling in the association of devotees. So I told him, that's not necessarily the peace of nature, that is not the monopoly of impersonalists, isn't it? That we have in the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, there is the Brahmana who learns from nature. There's a book called Enlightenment by the Natural Path written over there. There's observing nature and learning from it. In the 10th canto also, Shukdev Goswami observes the forests of Vrindavan and draws wisdom insights from there. So the idea is that it may not be going close to nature, might not be completely spiritual. But if it brings us to Sattva Guna, we don't want to stay over there forever and give up the association of devotees. But sometimes for us, if we require some things to get strength, then that's okay. We do those things. So they can be spiritualizable in the sense that we can directly spiritualize them, or they can give us a certain level of peace of mind by which we can become spiritual afterwards. So going back to this point of the activities that give strength and they require strength. So sometimes some of the activities that give strength may not necessarily be directly devotional, but they may be sattvic. You go for a walk. Is that spiritual? Somebody will say, if you go for a walk and you're not chanting, you're wasting time. Well, maybe. That's one way of looking at it. I say, okay, I go for a walk, I look at nature. If I'm looking for sense gratification everywhere, that's not a good thing. But we calm ourselves down, we come to Sattva Guna, we come back, and then we come to mode of goodness, we are able to practice bhakti better. So that's also good. Okay? Each one of us has to find how we can best work with the mind-body machine that we have. And when we learn that, then we will be able to move forward in a sustainable way. So I'll just add one more point over here. There's one devotee friend of mine. He was a big chess player before he came to bhakti. And then he was thinking of going professional also in chess. Then he gave it up. He started practicing bhakti. Then he said, when I came to 40, 45, I started feeling a great urge to play chess. And I thought, this is my eye. I'm not going to do this. But then one day, he said, I tried to read Bhagavatam about 1 hour on a daily basis, or at least weekly. So I had 1 hour for reading Bhagavatam. I was feeling so sleepy. I was feeling bored. And on the other side, I also got an urge to play chess. So then he said, I just turned on my computer, downloaded an app, and played for 10 minutes, like a timed chess match. And he said, after playing for 10 minutes, I just felt so refreshed, so enlivened, that then I read Bhagavatam, and my Bhagavatam reading for 50 minutes was better than what it had been for many days before, when I would read but I was getting spaced out. So now, I'm not recommending that we all start playing chess to sharpen our mind. But my point is that he is a devotee who's been practicing bhakti for 20 years. It is not that he wants excuses for not practicing bhakti. But everybody has to understand. So 1 hour of being sleepy or 50 minutes of being sharp, what is better? 50 minutes of being sharp is better. So somebody may decide that, okay, I used to like to do physical activity. I like to go for running. So you go for a run for 10 minutes or 15 minutes and come back and do bhakti activities. You may be able to do it better. So we may call that a sense gratification. And okay, that's one way of looking at it. But Krishna also says in the Bhagavad-Gita that we all need recreation. But the recreation should be regulated. Yuktahara viharasya. So just as the body needs rest, the mind also needs rest. Now some people may be able to give rest for their mind in devotional activities only. For some people, just reading Bhagavatam is resting their mind. Or for some people, Kirtans is resting their mind and relaxing their mind. But for some people, they may not find their recreation in devotional activities. Now, we don't want to go into sensual activities for recreation. But relatively speaking, doing some exercise or playing some creative game. I'm not saying that we have to do it. But each person needs to find out how best they can work with their mind. So that way, we take responsibility for keeping ourselves strong. See, there are activities which give us strength eventually because they purify us. And we need to do those activities. But there are activities which also help us feel better and stronger right now. And we may also need to do those activities. And we need to be aware of which those activities are. Okay?